CEO of Foundation Malaysia, Madam Josephine Tian. Independent Non-Executive Director of Berjaya Corporation Berhad, Ms. Noor Afida binti Abdul Ali. Group Chief Executive Officer of Manulife Holdings Berhad, Ms. Viva Coburn. Trustee and Managing Director of Yayasan Hasanah, Puan Siti Kamaria Ahmad Subki. Chief Executive Officer of Yayasan My SDG, Ms. Anita Ahmad. Group Chief Sustainability Officer of CIMB Group and Working Group Co-Chair of the CEO Action Network, CAN, Ms. Luwen Xie. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Roots and Shoots Malaysia, Berjaya Corporation Berhad, and the Tzu Foundation, I would like to extend the warmest welcome to all of you for being here today for the Symposium of Hope. I'm Wee Ping, your host for today. This event is more than just a gathering. It is a platform for us to reflect on the sustainability, innovation, and the critical role we all play in shaping a better future. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Jane Goodall. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give another big round of applause to Dr. Jane. Indeed, a global icon of hope and environmental stewardship. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to kickstart today's event by inviting our first speaker this afternoon. Let us welcome Ms. Noor Afida binti Abdul Ali, Independent Non-Executive Director of Berjaya Corporation Berhad, to say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Noor Afida binti Abdul Ali.
Host, right? Hi. Okay. A very good afternoon to Dr. Jane Goodall, founder of the Jane Goodall Institute and United Nations Messenger of Peace. Tan Sri Dr. Lim Wee Chai, founder and executive chairman of Top Glove Corporation, Berhad. Puan Sri Tong Siew Bee, deputy CEO, Suchi Foundation Malaysia. Mr. T.P. Lim, president of Roots and Shoots Malaysia. Ms. Viva Coburn, Group CEO of Manulife Holdings Berhad. Ms. Luwen Xie, Group Chief Sustainability Officer, CIMB Group, and Working Group Chair of CEO Action Network. Puan Siti Kamaria Ahmad Subki, Trustee and Managing Director of Yayasan Hasanah. Tan Sris and Tan Sris, Datuk Sris and Datuk Sris, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to Berjaya Times Square Hotel and the Symposium of Hope. It is my honor to host the symposium, and my gratitude goes to our prominent panelists and guests for being part of this meaningful and inspirational event that embodies our shared vision for a sustainable future. My utmost appreciation to Dr. Jane Goodall as one of our panelists in today's discussion. Your presence today means a lot to us, and I am especially delighted for this collaboration between Berjaya and Dr. Jane Goodall once again, after a very long time. The history between Tan Sri Datuk Sri Vincent Tan and by extension Berjaya with Dr. Jane Goodall started back in the year 2014 through our donation of seed money for the establishment of Roots and Shoots Malaysia. Through time, our goodwill and friendship has continued to remain strong. On behalf of Tan Sri Datuk Sri Vincent Tan and Berjaya, I am grateful for this opportunity to reconnect and organize this event with Dr. Jane Goodall and to gain more insight from her through this discussion. I am honored for the role that Berjaya plays together with Roots and Shoots Malaysia and Suchi Foundation in making this important forum a reality. In today's rapidly changing world, we find ourselves at a crucial crossroads. The decisions we make today will shape the world our young people will inherit tomorrow. We recognize this responsibility and have made environmental sustainability a cornerstone in our operations here in Berjaya Group. In our continuous effort towards sustainable business and practices, Berjaya has planned and enacted many initiatives to drive the sustainability agenda further into our operations. Over the years, we have dedicated ourselves to fostering sustainability through a variety of initiatives across our many business divisions. We believe these efforts not only reduce the environmental impact, but also promote eco-consciousness within the communities that we serve. One example, Berjaya Corporation Berhad has introduced sustainability KPIs along with our own internal ESG month. We also partner with Perkhidmatan Sosial Pembangunan Community for a plastic and e-waste recycling program to reinforce our commitment to sustainability. Our property subsidiary, Berjaya Land Berhad, has launched the Artificial Coral Reef Project at Taras Beach and Spa Resort to restore the marine ecosystems and promote biodiversity, highlighting its commitment to environmental sustainability in tourism. Sports Toto Berhad, meanwhile, has upgraded its fleet to Euro 4 trucks for better energy efficiency and reduced emissions. The company also teamed up with the Forest Reserve Institute Malaysia, FRIM, to plant trees in support of the government's campaign for environmental conservation. The company also organized a beach cleanup at Pantai Morib earlier this year and 400 kilograms of recyclables as part of Berjaya Recycling Program. These efforts support waste reduction and environmental preservation. Beyond our Malaysian shores, in the United Kingdom, our subsidiary, HR Owens, has made a substantial investment in renewable energy by installing solar at its head center. This initiative reduces energy consumption, lower carbon emissions, and supports the transition to cleaner, more sustainable energy sources. These various initiatives reflect our Berjaya's ongoing commitment to sustainability, emphasizing both environmental responsibility and community engagement. Through these efforts, Berjaya continues to strive for a greener future and inspire others to do the same. We understand, however, that the true sustainability goes beyond infrastructure. It requires nurturing environmental consciousness in our community, particularly among our youth. As a key collaborator of the Symposium of Hope, we are very excited to hear the insightful exchange among our prominent panelists today and reflect on how the content relates to the practices and policies that we follow ourselves in the group. I believe that it will also be an inspirational and thought-stimulating exchange that will also widen our horizon in the area. In the current times, when resources are becoming scarce with the possibility of depletion in the future, all of us hold the responsibility of the long-term sustenance of resources for future generations. This responsibility is shared by everyone, from decision makers to the average person. The knowledge in sustainability should be cultivated from a very young age. As part of our contribution to achieve this objective, we initiated this Symposium of Hope. The practices of achieving sustainability is not a one-man job, and we need more people to be aware of this to ensure that we have the best outcome in the long run. All of us depend on limited resources available, and therefore we should all do our part in ensuring sustenance for our future. I believe this forum will be insightful in helping us understand the perspective of individuals from diverse backgrounds. Before we go to the panel discussion, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our collaborators and partners of this event Roots and Shoots, as well as the Tzu Chi Foundation for making this symposium possible. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, and I hope that you will receive greater insight on our topic of sustainability and conservation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nora Afida binti Abdul Ali, Independent Non-Executive Director of Berjaya Corporation Berhad. Ladies and gentlemen, our next segment highlights the incredible work done by Tzu Chi Foundation Malaysia. Today, they're going to show taken with presentation titled "The Day Has Come, Bringing Sustainability by Keeping Sentient Beings and Mother Earth in Mind to the Corporates in Malaysia." Representing Tzu Chi Foundation Malaysia, let us welcome Commissioner Madam Yor Ka Peng. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Jane, Tan Sri, Datuk Sri, honored guests, brothers and sisters from Roots and Shoots and Tzu Chi. Thank you for being here on a Sunday afternoon, taking time off from your family, and also for some of you from the golf course. Dr. Jane was with us on Thursday in Tzu Chi Jingsu Hall, Kepong, where she addressed some 1,200 very eager listeners. Dr. Jane, you captivated hearts. You mesmerized all of us with your very exciting and interesting stories about your adventure, and also your encounter with many individuals, such as David and Wanda. And I'm sure everyone here is also eagerly waiting to listen to Dr. Jane. But before that, I would seek your indulgence to give me 30 minutes of your time to share with you the Tzu Chi's way to sustainability by keeping sentient beings and Mother Earth in mind. I will start with the introduction of Tzu Chi's mission so that you can get a better understanding and insights into how we practice ESG. Taiwan Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation was founded in 1966 by Master Cheng Yan. Master Cheng Yan's vision for Tzu Chi is to purify minds, bring harmony to society, and rid the world from disasters. But one that she has steadfastly put into practice over the last 58 years. Charity is Tzu Chi's first mission, and the philosophy here is premised on teaching the rich to help the poor and helping the poor to realize the riches within. In 1991, international disaster relief was added to our charity mission. And I'm sure some of you here might have seen pictures and videos of Tzu Chi volunteers at disaster sites, crossing borders, transcending race and religion to help those in need. Our motto here is to be the first to arrive and the last to leave. Medicine is our second core mission. Here, Tzu Chi strives to infuse science with humanity, curing illnesses, healing people, and mind. We currently own and operate 8 hospitals, 7 of which are in various parts of Taiwan, and we have 1 hospital in Indonesia, and I think the next one is coming in China. In the Klang Valley, we operate 2 free clinics, tending to an average of 150 patients a day. In 1993, Tzu Chi started a bone marrow registry in Taiwan, and I believe we are now the world's 2nd largest registry, with over 400,000 potential donors registered with us. So far, we have found 4,000 matches in 29 countries. Education is our 3rd core mission. Here, often it is referred as Project Hope. Indeed, children are the hope of society. What gives hope to children is education. Academic excellence aside, Tzu Chi education mission focuses on character building. We have built 256 schools in 18 countries. Here in KL, we operate 11 kindergartens and 1 international school in Bukit Jalil. In 1992, Master Chen Yan advised her followers, disciples, and volunteers to start practicing recycling alongside the promotion of vegetarianism to protect Mother Earth. Our 4th core mission is humanistic culture, and our objective here is to promote wholesome values in society and cultivate bonding and connectedness. These 4 core missions, they are the pathway to Master's vision to transform lives, transform societies for a harmonious world. This is the global footprint of Tzu Chi. Currently, we have offices in 68 countries with the support of over 10 million donors, members, and volunteers, aiding people in 136 countries. We are in the northern and the southern hemisphere, from the east to the west. That's the reason why sometimes people say the Tzu Chi world never sleeps. Tzu Chi has been a consultative member of the United Nations Economic and Social Council since 2010. Our 4 core missions and our principles are seamlessly aligned with the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. By putting our core missions into actions, we transcend nationality, religion, sector, and institution. We promote grassroots empowerment. We practice great love to leave no one behind. We practice environmental protection through 5R, which are refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. And of course, the promotion of vegetarianism. And we adhere to very strict governance. In terms of scales and size of operation, it's easier to explain through numbers. Tzu Chi Buddhist Charity Foundation's financial year for financial year 2023, as you can see here, we reported operating income in excess of $300 million US, of which 83% came from donation. The significance of this number is that it tells the story that there are a great number of people with loving kindness, compassion, who are willing to step forward to help those in need. Indeed, this is what gives us strength and courage, that whenever we walk into disaster site, we know that we have the backing of many people. Often people are asked, how is that Tzu Chi can raise so much money and a brand name, a global brand name that people trust, willing to donate and volunteer their time and effort? There are many, but one of which lies in the very high percentage of charity outlay. For the year ended 2023, 85% of our expenditure comprises of charity spending, and only 5% went for administrative expenses. So this is a very strong assurance to our donors that a very high percentage of their donation goes into the hands of the beneficiaries. But more importantly, I think, the strong brand name of Tzu Chi is underpinned by its commitment to uphold the 3 alphabets, ESG, best practice. So let me start with the E. Wherever Tzu Chi goes, we educate, we promote, and we encourage the locals to practice recycling and to uphold vegetarianism. Over the years, Tzu Chi's environmental protection effort has evolved to a circular model, turning trash to streams of products of great love. And this is really thanks to the dedication, constant research and innovation by Tzu Chi International Humanitarian AIDS Association, as well as our Ta'ai Circular Economy series. I would like to showcase one single product that has amazing effect. Over the years, we have many breakthroughs, but this is one of those. Sorry, before that, is the first loop operations, transformations. PET bottles collect in the various recycling centers. First of all, they were baled, then turned into flakes, chips, thread, fabric, and the various finished products. One of the breakthrough products that I would like to showcase to you today is the recycled. Volunteers would strip away plastics from the disposable meal boxes. And I think many people here do not know that actually. They will strip away and make into interlocking bricks. Plastics from 350 meal boxes make into one brick. So this is really a labor of love. And these bricks are permeable, they are anti-slip, they are very easy to transport because they are very lightweight, and they are very easy to lay. In 2015, TAI scored a major achievement when it successfully patented the process to transform remnants of recycled fabric back into its PET chip form, thereby enabling the creation of the R2R and R3R, which is the third loop eco products, using far less resources and less energy than the conventional production means. So this was how actually TAI shifted from a waste reduction green brand to a zero waste global green role model. Seeing is believing. So what we want to do today is to show you some of the products made from recycled PET bottles. These are our Tzu Chi uniforms of various functional groups. First, this is our blue top, white pants, and white shoes for commissioners. Next, this is the white top and black pants for members of Tzu Chi International Medical Group, followed by light blue top and white pants for the education group. It takes 9 recycled PET bottles to make the top, 13 for the pants, 2 for the shoes, 1 for belt, and 1 for socks. Next, this is the most loved eco blanket distributed to disaster survivors during our relief missions. It is made from 55 recycled PET bottles. The blue blanket is not for sale, but the green one can be purchased by members of the public. This is the full outfit for our disaster relief volunteers. The blue jacket is made up of 15 recycled PET bottles, 7 for the backpack, 3 for the scarf, 3 for the cap, and 2 for the sunglasses. We also have the TAI luggage series. Here we are showcasing the mid-size luggage, which takes 59 recycled PET bottles to make, and 42 for the carry-on bag. Here are some products from our health series. First, this is the patented Eco-Far infrared warming eye mask made of 2 rPETs. They are very effective. This is one of the most loved products because it puts me to sleep immediately. Second, this is the graphene USB hot pad, ideal to soothe aching joints, neck, and tired eyes. This was originally created to aid burn survivors in the 2015 water park explosion in Taiwan. Initially made for our elderly recycled volunteers, this waistband and knee guards are well sought after items. Even by the physically active, 2 rPETs are required for each of these items. Next up is our TAI Casual series. These are very versatile t-shirts and bags that are also suitable to double up as sportswear because they are very lightweight and they dry very quickly. Last, this is our cultural series. These are professionally designed by designers in Taiwan and China. They are very soft to the touch. You wouldn't even know that they are made from recycled PET bottles. The umbrella has an adjustable light and push button mechanism to open and shut easily. Tzu Chi products are designed with elegance and practicality in mind. They are made with a purpose to meet our needs, always keeping sentient beings and Mother Earth in mind. By giving these very short lifespan PET bottles a new lease of useful life, we could reduce plastic pollutions in our waterways and landfill. Thank you, Tzu Chi brothers and sisters. Like most corporates, Tzu Chi has also announced our net zero goal in 2021, making 2023 as our baseline year. Our immediate target is for a zero growth in emission by 2025. We have two midterm targets. The first one is a 15% reduction in emission by 2030, followed by 50% in 2040 before reaching net zero in 2050. This goal is pursued through four major steps, which are auditing, analyzing, reducing, and offsetting. And these are real, tangible programs. The push doesn't just come from the top down, but it is a charge committed by all Tzu Chi volunteers. Next is on our social best practice. We recognize that we can't eradicate poverty without strategies for economic growth and to address the many social needs, especially education, health, job securities, as well as social security, and also addressing climate change and environmental protection. Therefore, Tzu Chi 4 core missions focus not just on short-term relief, but taking a holistic approach to solve the needs of the suffering, especially the disaster survivors. So therefore, we aim to assist disaster-affected communities in their journey towards enhanced sustainability by following guidelines in major areas such as food security, nutrition, water, sanitation and hygiene, education, shelter provision, settlement development, as well as distribution of non-food items and healthcare services. I know for the corporates here, this sounds like a whole mouthful. And to many, these are just words. But for us, these are words that we put into action. And I would like to give you an example of a true situation. Some of you might still remember Haiyan typhoon that decimated many parts of the Philippines in 2013. And Tacloban city was one of those. When the first batch of Tzu Chi volunteers arrived at site, what greeted them was a city of ruins. Even the local government wanted to abandon this city of 250,000 people. But in reality, these locals have nowhere else to go. So Master Chen Yan, very wisely, came up with this idea, which we now call Cash for Work Relief Scheme, which paid participants 500 pesos a day to clean up their own homes, their own street, and the entire surrounding. Let us now watch a video.
On November 8th, Typhoon Haiyan struck the Philippines. It was one of the deadliest typhoons ever recorded. Over 15 million people have been affected, with 6,000 people dead and nearly 1,800 still missing. On November 13th, the first team of disaster assessment and medical personnel flew to the disaster region. A few days after arrival, volunteer doctors and nurses had already provided emergency medical aid to over 1,100 survivors.
Salamat nga kami na mayroong tumutulong ba. Kasi mahirap walang mga medisina, walang mabibili. Kahit yung Makati, may pambili man, walang mabibilhan.
Suji also began distributing hot meals, blankets, and emergency gift cards directly into the hands of tens of thousands of survivors.
Was out. Waray patay. Nagpapasalamat ako. Dako nga salamat nga nagatag nagbulig ang Buddhist Foundation.
The money they have received now, they are going to buy the GI sheets for the roofing of their houses and to start a new life.
On November 20th, Suji began a Cash for Work relief program, which pays survivors to clean up their own communities.
Chuchi Foundation, parang natauhan kami gumalaw at saka magtrabaho.
Tacloban maraming nakaw. At least ito okay na to. Para may trabaho, may pera na.
Makakapera sila, makakabili sila.
Through this program, Suji helps survivors regain a sense of purpose as they work together to rebuild.
Makakatulong pa sila sa kapwa nila at sa kapaligiran nila.
This program also injects much-needed cash into the local economy.
Pagkatapos ang bintahan, masurong na kay may naman kwartan mga tao. Ikang Chuchi Foundation.
Because many schools have been destroyed, Suji has set up temporary classrooms so that children can resume their education.
Malaking tulong talaga ito para sa amin at sa mga bata. Pupunan ng maayos. Hindi katulad doon na yung sira yung namin.
Maganda yung paligid ng maganda yung bintana, tsaka yung babaw.
In total, volunteers from 11 different countries have worked over 5,200 shifts to help out in Suji's Haiyan relief effort.
This is a blessing for us that you come here. I would like to thank you so much and we love you very much.
Over a month has passed since the typhoon, but for survivors, the disaster is far from over.
Gawa na sa malanta sa bagyo namin na naranasan namin kahirapan ba tapos pagdasal ko nga hindi na babalik sa amin yun.
Suji is committed to staying in the Philippines long term, building schools and houses and continuing to support the community.
What you just view is the culmination of loving kindness, supreme compassion, wisdom, steadfastness, and the spirit of collaboration. The city of ruins was cleaned up in just 19 days, and the cash paid out to the locals kick-started the economy, giving them hope and strength to restart their life. And most importantly, because they work for the cash, it helped to uphold human pride, which is very important today. And this same scheme was used here in Malaysia during the East Coast flood in 2014, 2015. This is just a brief summary of the assistance given to the Haiyan victims. People from 44 countries donated towards this program. Even though it is just 3.2 million paid out for cash for work, another 12 million actually was paid to 44,000 households. 5,000 prefabricated classrooms were put up so that children can get back to school as soon as possible. And over the time, 3,000 homes were built in various cities that were affected by Haiyan. So let us now watch the video on our East Coast flood.
Following the floods, many people here in Kuala Krau have been rendered homeless and helpless. Residents waterlogged and muddy furniture and belongings have been discarded alongside the road. As the flooding has left behind a thick layer of mud, volunteers quickly launched a Cash for Work program to help residents clean up their homes. In Pahang State, more than 1,300 people signed up for the Cash for Work program in 7 locations across 2 cities on the first day alone. They were joined by some 2,000 volunteers from Kuala Lumpur, Kuantan, and Malacca.
We have between 3,000 to 4,000 people joining the recovery efforts in 7 locations. It was very challenging, especially overseeing the overall coordination and delegation of tasks. Plus, two of the locations were about an hour's drive apart.
Knowing that help has arrived and that they're no longer alone, tears well up in the eyes of residents.
So many people came to share our burden. For those that came to help us, I want to thank all of you.
Thank you. So when the heart meets with the mind, you can turn mission impossible into mission possible. All of these missions are funded by public donations. So that brings me to our governance practice. From the day that Tzu Chi Foundation was founded, Master Zhen Yan and her disciples made sure that the abbot is financially independent from the foundation. They are fully self-sustained, and they live by the spirit that a day without work is a day without food. And they adhere to the policy that what comes from the people are for the people, even if it is a fistful of rice. And also, specific funds raised is for specific use. Take, for example, the Malaysian Solidarity Fund for COVID-19, which we launched in 2021 with the support of 19 interfaith groups. 100% of the funds raised were for COVID and COVID-related assistance with zero administrative charges. And one point that I would like to highlight here is that we Tzu Chi volunteers are not paid at all. Tzu Chi doesn't reimburse us for out-of-pocket expenses. We serve and give willingly. We pay for our own transport. We pay for our flights when we go overseas for disaster relief. We pay for our lodging. And we made all our own arrangements. And also, we make regular donations. So perhaps this is one of the many reasons why Tzu Chi has such a high social return on investment. For example, for every $1 that is invested in Jingsi Hall, we generate $8.50 in charitable benefits. For our recycling effort, we generate $6.40 in social benefits. And for the recycling devices, $81.18 is generated in benefits. So this is the way we add economic values to our beneficiaries. And this is the power of the coming together of people volunteering without anything in return. You give without expectations. And this is something that every one of us here can do because loving kindness, compassion is our intrinsic nature. On Thursday, one member of the audience asked Dr. Jane, Dr. Jane, what do you do to look after yourself? And I was like waiting for Dr. Jane to give us some longevity tips. But her answer was just a short 5 crisp words. And those words are now strongly etched into my mind. She said, I don't care about myself. Such is the spirit of selflessness and living for others that we can all emulate. If we can live 10% of what Dr. Jane does, the world will be a harmonious one. So we do look forward to more people coming forward to volunteer because our world today is saddled with too many disasters. Some are natural, but many, many, many others are actually man-made. So let's come together and we can do this and enjoy the power of love for others. So with that, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much to our commissioner Madam Yo Kar Peng of Tzu Foundation Malaysia for such an inspirational and such a beautiful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, Roots and Shoots Malaysia started our programs in the year 2015 under the inspiration and guidance of none other than Dr. Jane Goodall. We have developed projects which aim to make Malaysia a better place for all, not just for us humans, but also for animals and, of course, for the environment. These Roots and Shoots initiatives are very good examples of what young Malaysians are trying to do to make a difference. For all of these projects, we're also seeking your support as collaboration partners. So if you're interested, please approach us after the event, and we would like to share with you any of the projects which may be in line with your corporate mission and also vision. So please feel free, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we shall now invite the man behind all of these, who is the president of Roots and Shoots Malaysia, Mr. T.P. Lim, together with our youth volunteer, Max Han.
Hello. Thank you very much, Dr. Jane. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This part of the program was supposed to be after Dr. Jane's speech, but one very wise person said, you know that after Dr. Jane speaks, nobody's going to stay around for you. So here I am. Thank you very much. My name is TP. I'm the president of Roots and Shoots Malaysia. And about 9 years ago, we were in this actual hall, Dr. Jane, when we launched the program. And we're back here again 9 years later to celebrate your 90th birthday year. So I think the first thank you goes to Tan Sri Vincent Tan, and instrumental in bringing Roots and Shoots into Malaysia and getting it off the ground. So today I'm going to spend a few minutes myself and then introducing some of our team members to share with you some of the projects that we've been doing. And the reason why we wanted to talk about them was because we know that there are many of the bosses of companies and leaders in big corporations. We really, really would like for you to know what we've been up to in the hope that maybe some of the projects we're doing could be aligned with your corporate vision, and then maybe we can work together and find ways of, well, making Malaysia a better place. So maybe I can start with a program called the Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots Malaysia Award. If you're familiar with the Duke of Edinburgh Award in England, basically this is a program where young people go out and they volunteer. This is the one where Prince William was seen washing the toilet. You know that one? Yeah. Anyway, so we started our own version, the Roots and Shoots Malaysia Award. Short name is RASMA. What it is, next slide please. We've created this platform where 30 over local NGOs can find volunteers through our network. Right? So essentially what we've done is we realized that there were so many amazing NGOs doing absolutely fantastic work in Malaysia. We didn't need to duplicate their work. So when we interviewed them, we figured that one thing that they didn't have time and resources to do was actually to recruit more volunteers. And in our case, we wanted them quite young, right? So we determined that for this program, the youths were going to be aged 16 to 25. Why we choose that age? It's very for practical reasons, because a lot of these organizations are actually based in the field, right? Whether it's somewhere in Sabah, Sarawak, or Terengganu, sometimes you literally have to travel by boat or through quite rural areas and through the jungle to work there. So we wanted youths who were old enough to take care of themselves. And so for age 16 to 25, they could apply. And then we will use an algorithm and an internal kind of back-end system to match the requirements of the NGOs with the availability and the strengths of the different youths. So whether you're a good designer, you know, it's amazing. Some of our youths, they're like, I'm really good at making TikTok videos. And then we discovered the NGOs, they're like, great, we don't know how to do TikTok videos. We know how to save the tiger. We know how to plant trees. We have no idea how to do TikTok, right? So we match-made them. And then eventually, we discovered that this was something that the youths really enjoyed. And so let's have a look at the data. So over the past few years, 2019 all the way to 2024, we started with a humble 15 NGO partners. We now have 38. Our applicants went from 90 to 349. Our graduates from 36 to 133. And this year, we have a bumper year of 133 graduates, accumulating more than 11,000 hours of voluntary time. So, and, you know, I have to thank Yayasan Hassana, represented by Puan Siti, and the Habitat Foundation, you know, Danny and Alan. Thank you also to Puan Shahira, Datuk Shahira now, who was at that time part of YH, and now amazing support that we're receiving from Puan Siti and your team. So we are excited about this program, and I want to bring on stage one of our original cohorts, 2019. We have a young man, his name is Max. He joined the program when he was 18, and now he is 23. So I'm just going to bring him on stage so that he can tell you about what he's been up to as a result of joining RASMA. Okay, please give Max a big round of applause.
Hi everyone, I'm Max Han, and I'm the co-founder of Youth United for Earth. And we're a youth-led non-profit mobilizing youth in Malaysia for climate action and climate justice through storytelling, campaigning, and advocacy. And our humble story actually begins with RASMA 4 years ago, and this was where I first met Dr. Jane, hello again, and my co-founder Fatin through its inaugural program. So our RASMA journey brought me to Langkawi and the Perhentian Islands. I was working with children, conservationists on a lot of research for conservation with colugos and with plastic pollution as well. And Fatin at that time was working with Orang Asli communities, so indigenous communities in Royal Belum Park. And one central theme that tied our projects together was that we both realized the need for local conservation, local storytelling, and also to harness this incredible power of young people to make a change. But young people need a safe space to do so, to fail upwards with our projects, and also come up with our unique youth-led solutions. And so we started a project called Youth United for Earth. And little did we know that this Leo movement would soon turn into a bigger, formalized non-profit. And we've since reached over 50,000 people through social media. And one very cool thing that we did this year was to lobby with other youth groups for our minister, and we got the Malaysian government to create the first Federal Youth Climate Advisory Group. So young people who has to live with the decisions can now participate directly in environmental decision-making for the world that we are about to inherit. And we've also won some international awards to put Malaysia on the map. So one award we won was the Princess Diana Award from the UK, and from the US, we had the North American Association for Environmental Education's 30 Under 30. And this year, we'll be heading to Stockholm under a Future Nobel Laureate Award scholarship, under the Nobel Prize Museum and EF Education. And we're the first Southeast Asians to receive this recognition. And I want to spotlight one project that we're very proud of. It's our flagship project. And this was something that we started with RASMA as our strategic partner from the very start. So we created Malaysia's first and largest sustainability mentorship program, where we support undergraduates in their green transition for their green careers by connecting them to industry leaders like all of you through one-to-one personalized mentorship. And we especially target rural, indigenous, marginalized groups for this endeavor. And we've been running this for 4 years now. So since then, we've amassed a base of mentors of 200 plus people and impacted over 300 mentees with 2,000 hours invested into training the next generation of Malaysian environmentalists. And this year, we're supporting 26% of mentees who identify as B40 low-income groups. And you know, our mentorship program has since grown organically. our mentors have organically posted on LinkedIn and even dragged their colleagues to come and volunteer to support the next generation of environmentalists. And our mentees have really gone on to secure jobs with their mentors, internships, and they had this ripple effect where they started their own projects, startups, and initiatives as well. So we've been doing this for 3 years, thanks to a seed grant from RASMA, which we used to pay for our website and stretch this out to give stipends to the low-income mentees of our program. And after 3 years of successful impact and evidence, we managed to secure an even larger grant under UNICEF and UNDP Malaysia's Youth Environment Living Labs initiative. Now, we're in our 5th year, and we are still as dedicated as ever to continue scaling our impact up across Malaysia as well, with RASMA continuing on as our strategic partner. So I know Dr. Jane's main reason for hope is the power of young people. And I must say, if a group of Malaysian teenagers can manage to create this kind of impact and reach tens of thousands on social media still monthly, imagine what we can do with more support. In many ways, I really believe that Malaysian youth are somewhat like mini Janes. We are all ambitious, creative, and really unwavering in our hope for a better world, and we want to turn that into reality. And with the right opportunities, I really believe there's no limit to what we can achieve. And so I strongly believe that the future of Malaysia is here. It's in the hands of us as Malaysian youth, and we are ready to harness our energy to make that difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Thank you. So Max is obviously one of our, I guess, shining examples of the young people who have, performed and outperformed and exceeded all expectations. But we also want to share that we have youths of all ages, all shapes and sizes, and of big ambitions and smaller ambitions. But I think one thing that Jane has always reminded us is every single day that you live, you make an impact in the world. And you have to decide what kind of impact you want to make, no matter how small, whether it's a choice of choosing not using single-use plastic, using public transport instead of driving. It doesn't matter how small, you can truly, truly make a difference. Now, another aspect of the programs that we do in Malaysia is very artistically inclined. So maybe I share with you another project. This one was actually started during COVID, right? It's called Eco. It's a program that we created during COVID because we couldn't get out, but we missed nature so much. We missed so much being able to see beautiful birds and wonderful wildlife. And so we created an online portal where young Malaysians, as well as young people from different parts of the Roots and Shoots network. Let's look at to the next one. So if you can see India, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, and Australia, we decided to get together and create this platform so that we could share the beautiful nature we had in our home countries. And as a result of this, actually a great deal of art has been created, not just in photography, but also in poetry, also in paintings, also like you see some of them here. By the way, they are for sale. We are trying to fundraise. And also, we have documentaries being made. So I'm going to invite a friend to come on stage now to share about how a making of a documentary and a book turned into a ginormous project that involves an entire state. Okay, please welcome Mr. Peter Ong and Mr. Shamil from Perlis.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. Hi, my name is Peter, and this is my brother Shamil from Perlis. So basically, let me just clicking. Is it clicking? It's clicking, but the slide is not transferring. Wait, okay, we're waiting. Okay, anyway, here it comes. End of the slideshow. Okay, so thank you very much again to everyone for coming here. So basically, for those of you who don't know me, I actually started off as a stage performer. I do musical theater. And when I met Dr. Jane for the second time, she came down to Malaysia. She started asking me about Malaysia's primates, and I had no answer. And in those days, in 2017, there wasn't even a comprehensive species list of our biodiversity, nor of our primates. And in 2017, we were really on about building a flying car, but we didn't even know how many primate species we had in our own backyard. So I was determined to find out. Dr. Jane said she's obstinate, and I'm a Taurian, so I'm also obstinate. So I was like, I'm going to find my own answers. So I went around looking, and I discovered that there was a species of primate called the stump-tailed macaque, whose Malaysian population only exists in Perlis, and more specifically, only exists north of Perlis in a little village called Kampung Wang Kelian. Now, I just found out last night because I was busy messaging this guy, Shamil. He's amazing. He was the one who did the first paper on bird kintoy in 2017, right? Amazing. Before that, no data, no research, nothing. And I was messaging him like in 2020. So yesterday we went out for dinner with his wife, and his wife said, did you know? He came back and said, I don't want to meet this guy. I don't want to take him around. I was like, really? Well, that's why it took me so many messages to get you to take me around. But eventually, yes, being obstinate works. He took me and TP around to meet the stump-tailed macaque. And when he brought me to meet the stump-tailed macaque, I fell in love. Not just with the stump-tailed macaque, but the beauty of Perlis and specifically of Wang Kelian. And so in last year, 2023, I applied for a grant from Think City, as well as the Habitat Foundation, together with my friends from Perlis Nature Wildlife, and also with much support from Jabatan Perhutanan Perlis. We went in to do a book and a documentary about the biodiversity and the cultural heritage of Wang Kelian and Kampung Kaki Bukit. That was what we did, and thank you. And before you know it, Perlis last year also succeeded in getting the entire state gazetted as a national geopark. Fantastic. So ever since I started Project Monyet and photographing all of the primate species of Peninsular Malaysia, we have 26 species. Perlis is one of the states which has the highest count of primates. 7 species of primate, but they're all found in Wang Kelian, in that beautiful Nakawan range. So here are just some numbers. What's so beautiful about this range? 370 million years old. It is actually the oldest limestone range we have in the country. And now we're going on to phase 2. So we received a grant from the Ministry of Finance through the Habitat Foundation and through the Sustainable Tourism Network of Malaysia to rehabilitate and revive a trail called the Denai Warisan, which links the 2 northernmost villages in Perlis, Wang Kelian, to the historic mining town of Kaki Bukit. It's a beautiful trail. It's got over 100 years of human history, and it cuts through 8 kilometers of forests, rivers, and caves. And I'm going to let my friend take over soon, but just to show you some of the biodiversity around the area, this was just like on a day trip out. We have hornbills, we've got gibbons, we've got Robinson's banded langurs, and at night we've got colugos and slow lorises. It's amazing. But, so we got this grant after the documentary and the book to rehabilitate the Denai Warisan Perlis, to empower the local communities by creating an ecotourism asset. And what do I mean by asset? Like Dr. Jane's philosophy, the environment must be proven to generate income for the local communities and the local state government so that it's worth more to them protected than it is cut down and sold. And that's exactly what we intended to do, and we set out to revive the Denai Warisan. So I'm handing this over to my brother Shamil.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So during the last, thank you. So when we first discovered this trail in 2023, it was really an abandoned trail that has been used for has been abandoned for more than 20 years. After the main road was built to connect the local villages to get the daily supplies into the nearest town of Kaki Bukit. So this trail has a lot of biodiversity. As you can see, there's also been being abandoned to get all the rubbish and the debris stuck into the river system. So the river system here is really unique because the water flow into a small stream that connects into what we call the underground tunnel, and then suddenly it emerges from the small cave. And when it's flooded, this area will be a whirlpool And then the trail has been collapsed, just like in the photo.
Yes, we had lots of rubbish. When we first went in, the rubbish was way past my knees. That's how deep it was. And we had to take everything out bit by bit.
Okay, then in August, we start our clearing. And here, some of all our works. And then after all the clearing, more than 300 kilograms rubbish and debris have been carried out. Then we have Malayan soft shell turtle coming to check us out. That is why we bring back the river to life, and it's been proven by all this wildlife. So there's also a cave, the new cave that we found, where there are a lot of soda straws that never been discovered before. Okay, go next. In September, we start to do the safety line. We install all the ropes, and also we have a small expedition with the State Forestry Department to go through down of the trail for nearly 10 kilometers until in October there's a flash flood coming back again to bring back all the debris and the rubbish. Then in November, right?
In November?
In November, we have to carry out everything back, and then we have a support from the local government and the local army, and as well as the local communities. And also we have the volunteers from RASMA, from everyone that we know to come to help us out before we go to the launching also in November.
So what you see here is the trail when it was launched. We had incredible support from Duli Yang Amat Mulia, Raja Muda Perlis, Duli Yang Amat Mulia, Raja Puan Muda Perlis, the state government, local communities. Here they are for the launch. We cleared up plastic bags, chairs, tables, everything, you name it. These are some of the images of the launch. Our partners from the Habitat, from Manulife, thank you so much. And this picture says it all. The river is now clean, the locals are back to enjoy it, and the trail is now open for business. So if you'd like to visit the trail, pay your permit and hire a local guide, and enjoy. Thank you so much to all our partners.
Thank you. Thank you. So what we discovered was that, just as Jane has always said, you have to connect the head to the heart. We cannot keep telling people things are not going to work. Instead, we should find ways to make things work. And one of the best ways we discovered was storytelling. So documentary, art, children's books, etc., etc. And then we realized that to connect to the heart, you have to make the heart quiver. You have to make the heart feel something. So the best way to get to that is actually through beauty, art, and amazing storytelling. And so we are very happy today to share that Roots and Shoots Malaysia would like to launch a new program, not just for Malaysia, but for all of the Roots and Shoots around the world, called the Wildlife Artists Alliance. Okay, so what it means is we're going to get all the artists from around the world, whether you are a musician, you're a painter, you're a poet, whether you're a dancer, you could be a documenter, what kind of art form you do. We want your skills and your talent to come forward and contribute towards telling a better story, an inspiring story for nature and conservation. And so I want to invite on stage now another amazing person. Let's welcome Miss Christine. Come on, accompanied by Peter. So the amazing art pieces you see right up front are created by Christine, who has been a conservation artist in Malaysia for a number of years. So many of the years are quite tough, quite struggling, but you found the light, so we are now working together for the Wildlife Artists Alliance. Please, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Christine. I'm a Malaysian wildlife conservation artist for the past 13 years. And so let me tell you a story. This is what I see every day in front of my house. My home studio is right in front of this park in Subang Jaya. It not only brings me joy and gives me calm, but it also inspires my creativity. So one day, when I returned home from Penang last month, this is what I saw. cluster of 35 trees were just felled within 5 hours by the local council. And the trees were gone. There's a void. And we were all so saddened and shocked because we didn't know anything about it. And I believe I'm still grieving for it because while talking about it, I can still feel the sadness in my heart because I've connected with the trees and the birds that were, living their lives in this park. So for the 5 years that I have lived in this particular house, in front of this environment, I have photographed 30 over bird species. And we had a healthy population because the park had 3 large, healthy fig trees. Unfortunately, when the fig trees were felled that day, the bird population has significantly decreased. In fact, all of us miss the symphony of birds, singing from sunrise to sunset. It's pretty silent now. This issue made me realize that either people, including the council, they generally don't know or just don't care. That's because we have very little information about our biodiversity, especially urban biodiversity. Okay, so can I see a show of hands? How many of you here know how many animal species feed on a fig tree? Just for fun. Okay, no problem, it's okay, because even I don't know, neither does the council. But which brings me to the point of this presentation. So we would like to introduce you to the Wildlife Artists Alliance, also known as WA, right? So we are all aware of the impact of climate crisis, and this is where the Wildlife Artists Alliance can play a vital role in raising awareness of the causes and the potential solutions. So this alliance will connect the head to the heart because it is only when we understand, then do we care. And when we start caring, then we will start to take action. So, great stories empower people to take action. This is the vision of WA. So as we said earlier, good storytelling leads to action, right? And that's what we, the world, need today. And never, ever underestimate the power of art. So last month in October,
Christine and I had a joint exhibition in Penang at the Hin Bus Depot. It ran for 4 weeks, and it was based upon the 12 primate species of Peninsular Malaysia. So I provided the photos, and Christine took the inspiration and made works of art. So you can see them also in the front. We had a massive amount of footfall. We had over 10,000 people come over the space of 1 month. Every weekend we were doing talks day and night. We had documentary screenings, we had panel discussions, so the reach and impact was really, really vital. And this is what WA is all about. We would like to form and launch this alliance with various other artists, as well as young aspiring artists, not just to provide training, but also vital knowledge, and also access to an economic viability for the arts. We are looking for corporate partners for the 3-year program to fund youth outreach activities and to support our platforms, which include community engagements and art exhibitions, as well as to support a livelihood for young artists. The benefits of aligning up with us, including enhancing ESG goals, engaging with youth, aligning with global sustainability goals, as well as brand visibility and PR. And which leads us to our announcement of our first project. If anyone's interested, last night, as Dr. Jane and I were sitting on the couch and everyone else was upstairs having a good laugh, Dr. Jane leaned over to me and said, you know, oh, so what's happening to Solo? Because yesterday we had a screening of Finding Solo, a documentary that Miles and I did. And I was like, I've got a video of what he's doing today, and he's in the forest, sent to me by this uncle. And then she's like, we must do something. We must tell stories. The world needs more stories. And then she proceeds to say that it's always been one of her dreams to become a voice for our gibbons. For those who don't know, gibbons are also apes. And in Malaysia, yes, we have the orangutan, which is a great ape, but we also have 5 species of gibbon, which nobody knows about. And all 5 species of gibbon are now endangered. In the peninsula Malaysia, we have the siamang, which is the largest gibbon species in the planet. And it's beautiful because it only exists in the peninsula and in Sumatra, and that's it. So we are losing our gibbons very, very quickly. And now we'd like to let everybody know that Dr. Jane has in fact agreed to lend her voice to this new documentary coming up on the gibbon species of Malaysia. So thank you very much, Dr. Jane. So if anyone is interested in joining us on this documentary journey to talk about the gibbons of Malaysia and hopefully eventually Southeast Asia as well, do come look us up. So thank you very much, Dr. Jane. Thank you very much, Christine.
Thank you
very much,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen. Thank you.
Okay, moving swiftly along, we thought about how else can we make a difference, but also make it economically viable for different communities around Malaysia to benefit from ecotourism, from protecting the environment and making it basically financially viable. And so we have come up with yet another campaign, which I'd like to now invite the 2 beautiful ladies, Farah Fauzi and Amelia Tan. Please join us, young ladies, to share on this wonderful project.
Thank you, TP.
What can humankind achieve if we were more conscious? Hi, I'm Amelia.
And I'm Farah.
And we're from Conscious.
Today, I'd like to share with you a project, a vision, a shared one actually, between ourselves and Roots and Shoots Malaysia called Kampung Conscious, a collective of conscious communities. What is kampung? In the Malay language, kampung can mean hometown or village, and for most people, it's a little bit of both. Imagine a village of the future where Mother Nature is a legal entity, where the community spirit is strong, and that community is responsible. They have really strong responsible citizenship, where that's the norm, and that circular industries fund sustainable economic development. This is our mission at Kampung Conscious, to seed, nurture, and build conscious communities and collectives across the country, region, and the globe.
Let me share with you a story of a recent trip I made to a little state up north called Perlis Indra Kayangan, where I met the most inspiring and purpose-driven group of individuals that came together to revive a 100-year-old abandoned trail to its former glory. This trail is known as the Denai Warisan, which you just learned about earlier. This place, I can attest, is truly magical, and it was here that I was introduced to 3 different individuals from the local community that made a lasting impression on me. The first person is none other than Shamil, which you just heard from earlier. A fun fact that I learned about Shamil just a week ago is that he used to work in a hotel as the head of marketing before finding his calling to be a primate researcher specializing in the Barok Kantoi. It is Shamil's work that is the catalyst for the Denai Warisan project. The next person is Along, the most interesting character you'll meet. Along is a man with a troubled past, but he turned his pain into purpose. He is now a local cave guide and the unofficial historian for his village. Along is so passionate about conserving nature that he would drag his children to the river by the caves to collect plastic bottles. And finally, we have Zul, the sweetest person. Zul is an electrician by day, an orchid expert in his spare time. Zul told us that he's been passionate about orchids ever since he was in school, and now Zul is responsible for tracking all the rare orchid species in Perlis and documenting them. To us, these men are the true stewards of the land. It is through their love of nature that an entire community came together to revive a 100-year-old abandoned trail. This picture is super special to me because in this picture, you'll see all levels of society present at the opening of the trail just 2 weeks ago. From the Raja Muda of Perlis to primary school kids, private sector funders, government officials, NGOs, and social enterprises like ourselves who were invited to be part of the mission. Many would think that Perlis is undeveloped, but for us, Perlis is the perfect place to pilot the philosophy of Kampung Conscious, where we can co-create a sustainable economic development plan for ecotourism, sustainable agriculture, and social entrepreneurship.
But how do we make this happen? How do we continue to empower the stewards of the land and their neighbors and their children who will be coming to remain on that land for many, many years to come? Enter Kampung Conscious Festival, a pop-up village festival celebrating biodiversity, arts, and culture of the local community, where we will do fun educational workshops and screenings, as well as entertaining arts and cultural performances with the goal of providing income opportunities for local businesses, local stewards, while we promote sustainable packaging and sustainable lifestyle. We invite you to fulfill your ESG vision with us at Kampung Conscious through our 2 pillars. In the environmental pillar, we are committed to the conservation of local biodiversity, to the empowerment of local nature guides like Along, as well as the elimination of single-use plastic pollution. We're also committed to the social pillar through the development of local talent as we do capacity building and upskilling and the promotion of local arts, heritage, and culture while we generate income through circular activities. We would love to have you in the room build the first ever Kampung Conscious with us. The first ever inaugural Kampung Conscious Festival in the state of Perlis you have now heard so much about as we build capacity, build the local community through trainings, ecosystem mapping, focus groups, and community seed funding to ensure that they are sustainable. And this is what we need to make it happen. The first ever pilot, we require 500,000 ringgit, as well as Kampung Conscious in other states. We know what we've shared is just a really small brief and snippet of what we want to do. And if you'd like to learn more, please reach out to Amelia or myself later on. We believe that together, everyone in this room and ourselves, with Roots and Shoots, will be building a better world, one village at a time. And we would like to thank Dr. Jane Goodall and Roots and Shoots Malaysia for providing us this platform.
All right. One last presentation to talk about this wonderful thing called agroforestry. I think many of our corporate partners here are in the business of agriculture, and I don't want to say anymore. I just invite the
Hi everyone, I hope you are not having information. No presentation. I come from Johor, and today our part of our farming family is here, including our youngest regenerative farmer, Sawa. Sawa, come Sawa, everybody, Sawa. Yeah, and Alia and Shan, we come from. Well, we are a farm in Johor, in Kota Tinggi, near Panti National Park, and we're doing something pretty special. We are the first syntropic agroforestry farm, rehabilitating degraded land in Malaysia. So we're called A Little While, not too wild, just a little while. So I just want to, I don't know how to distill a 5-day workshop into 5 minutes, but if there's something that I can share after 12 years of regenerating land, is that every land's dream is to be a forest. Do we agree? Every land's dream, whether it's your garden, whether it's your degraded land, deforested land, whether it's palm oil land, whether you see the weeds are coming back, right? You see that forest, there's a 500 million year design. Every land's dream is to be a forest. The question is, can we belong to that dream? Or is it better for us to just leave the land alone? Can we belong to that dream? Can we, deep in our hearts, we know this is true? Because we are the forest. When we breathe in, we are breathing the out breath of the forest, right? When we are drinking water, our blood is the river of the forest. Our skin is the soil. Even fossil fuels used to be forests. So we are the forest. That's why in our hearts, deep inside our hearts, I ask every one of you, no matter how urban you are, to just ask yourself, is that true? And ask yourself, can I belong to this dream? Can I be part of this family of things to bring the forest back? Who is very sad of our state of our soil and land now? Who's very sad? Raise your hand. Yeah, you see? It's there. We know it's true. So in 1984, there is a guy called Ernst Gosch. He's a plant geneticist from Switzerland. He bought this land in Brazil, totally degraded. Cannot even plant ubi kayu anymore. 1,200 acres. And 30 years later, he observed, he used every land's dream is to be a forest as his guide. And this is his land 30 years later. And that is his house. And the craziest thing is, in this forest, 90% of the forest is now national park. He returned it to the national parks. And this is him. Underneath that forest, he is planting the most productive, high premium cacao. 30 years, zero chemicals, zero irrigation, not a single piece or drop of chemicals. Purely following the land's natural way to become a forest again. But with human participation, he is creating soil 20 times faster than the natural forest rate. Soil is coming back. Biodiversity is coming back 5-6 times faster than if the forest was left alone to regenerate. So do we belong to this dream? Yes? We do, right? So here, 2020, we dived into it with our hearts. In Kota Tinggi, that is our land, all palm oil, degraded, 30, 40 years of palm oil, super bad soil. And what we did was we took out a little piece of land, by manually cut down the palm trees. And this is barely 1 year later, and this is barely 3 years. Can you see the forest coming back? Yeah, by natural succession. And this is underneath. We are selling pineapple, we're selling bananas, while the durian, the palm oil, the coconut is being mothered by the other fruit trees. Not a single drop of fertilizer, not a single pipe of irrigation. Purely the natural intelligence and dynamics of the forest with our participation, our observation, our pruning, our participation. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, 3 years, huh? So this is Amir and Ayaka. Amir is a master chef in Singapore. This is him planting his nest, a youth. Can you see the first photo, second photo, then we did some pruning, and within 2 months, that nest is now a mini forest. So you can do it in your backyard. You don't have to do it on large tracts of land. And we are also now 60, 70 families in Pahang, Orang Asli families are now using our method to grow their own food, to be self-sustainable, planting the forest back. Okay, so I know I don't have a lot of time, so I just want to say that we are not like woo-woo. A professor from NUS, Benjamin, he tested our soil. He mapped the DNA of every microbe in our soil, and he's blown away. Within 4 years, not just the diversity is jumped up, but the species are completely different. He says, the species and the soil is healing so fast, I'm going to apply for a long-term grant. Maybe one of you can help give him some grants to research by just the DNA of the microbes. And carbon, we just got certified. This method of syntropic agroforestry is recognized So we just sold our first carbon credit in Europe. It's something like 20,000 ringgit an acre. You know, and we didn't even pay a single cent to get ourselves certified, because there are so many good-hearted people around. So just want to conclude with this slide. I'm here because of TP and Dr. Jane. We want to really collaborate with Roots and Shoots in these 3 areas. We hope that you can support this. We want to train 1,000 young syntropic agroforesters. I'm already 45. We want to plant 300,000 trees, a food forest back. We want to develop an arboretum so that we have our living seed bank. And we want to demonstrate that it works for palm oil, durian, all these crops that we love. But we do it in a way with no chemicals, no pesticides. So I hope that you can visit our farm and please support Roots and Shoots. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Will Chua and to all our aspiring youth volunteers. For those of you who like to participate in the Roots and Shoots programs, you may email them to the email address that's now on the screen.
Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, my primate cousins, my fellow Malaysians, selamat petang. My name is Anjani. The more astute amongst you would have noticed that I am a Berukentoi spirit. For my non-Bahasa speaking friends, that unfortunately literally translates into ugly monkey. So, if you think you have problems, my species is only found deep within the Nakawan range of Perlis, an amazing rainforest landscape nestled amongst limestone caves. A small sample of why Malaysia is recognized as one of only 17 mega biodiverse countries in the world. Truly, from our orangutans in Borneo to our tapirs in the peninsula, we're like nature's living encyclopedia. Today, I have the great privilege to introduce a very good kawan of mine who has come to visit our blessed Tanah Air. This friend of mine is a real champion. For over 60 years, she stayed committed to one cause: protecting our environment and its inhabitants. Even at 90 years old, she's still traveling 300 days out of a year to advocate for conservation. That kind of tenacity is just unparalleled. The only time I've seen the same kind of passion from Malaysians is when our mothers yell at us for forgetting to turn off the lights and aircon. See lah, never listen to your mother. Now we all have a global energy crisis. Jokes aside, she was the one who discovered that my cousins, the chimpanzees, knew how to make tools. That discovery has literally led to the reclassification of man in the natural ecosystem, such that man is not apart from, but rather a part of the animal kingdom. I told you we were cousins. What's more, her field research has contributed to a deeper appreciation and understanding of animal intelligence, as she noted that chimpanzees also have the capacity to feel the full spectrum of emotions, from joy to fear to empathy. As for me, I can safely say I am feeling in awe at the moment. Her work has been so groundbreaking that even the late Queen Elizabeth II recognized it, appointing her as Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Not bad for someone who started her journey without a degree, kan? Globally, she has inspired generations of environmental stewards and conservationists. She's met heads of states, presidents, prime ministers, royalty, leaders of global corporations, and millions of young people, the leaders of tomorrow. And of course, her impact has been so profound that Time magazine named her as one of the 100 most influential people of all time. That is a proper influencer in all definitions of the word. She's not one to boast, but my kawan has received numerous awards and honors, including serving as the United Nations Messenger of Peace since 2002. We are incredibly lucky to have her in the room with us today, particularly here in Malaysia, home to countless species found nowhere else on Earth. She comes with a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, so please prep your questions. And as you listen to my friend today, remember, we're all shareholders in this magnificent blue-green enterprise called Earth. Yes, a monkey just gave you business advice. My friends, here is an activist who has devoted her entire life to helping the environment, animals, and humans. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great honor to introduce my primate cousin, Dame Dr. Jane Goodall.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jane Goodall.
Well, good heavens, what a feast we've all had. I feel enriched, I feel very inspired, and it's been quite a journey learning what we've just heard, and it makes me feel I'm not quite sure what I feel, but when I started Roots and Shoots in 1991, all those years ago, and now I see what's happened with Roots and Shoots in Malaysia, and that's happening in 71 countries around the world. But first of all, let me start off. We've heard an awful lot about the environment. We've heard about agroforestry. We've heard about helping people. We've heard about running in after hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods. We've heard about human nobility. And of course, we also have to face the fact that today there's an awful lot going on in the planet, which makes us sometimes feel very depressed. But I want to go back to the beginning, first of all. And how did Dr. Jane come to be, what you just heard? And you know, I sat there listening, and I think, who is that Dr. Jane? I mean, you know, I feel just like me. And then I hear all these things, and I see pictures. How did it happen? Well, I credit a huge amount of what I've become to my amazing mother. We can't choose our mothers as far as we know. I just got lucky. And I was born loving animals, and I had a supportive mother. Very, very important. A mother who supported my love of animals and who helped me follow along that path. And you know what's interesting? I've spent, as you all know, you've heard anyway, many, many years studying chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. We differ from them by only just over 1% of our DNA. And we've now been studying them for many years. We're in our 64th year of study in Gombe National Park in Tanzania. So we now know, looking back, and by the way, chimps can live 60 years, but looking back, we know that the chimpanzees who had supportive mothers who would run to their defense, even though probably the mother might get beaten up by a higher-ranking female, those individuals, the males, got to a higher position in the male hierarchy, very important for chimpanzees, and the females made better mothers. So it just points to the importance of supportive mothers, and something I talk about when I talk to young people around the world. And of course, supportive fathers equally, but my father went off fighting in World War II, and then my parents divorced, so I never knew my father. But mothers, fathers, parents, grandparents, supportive parents help people to get a good start in life. So that's the first person that I want to really acknowledge as being instrumental in my becoming who I have become. So as I say, I was born loving animals, and I spent a lot of time out. We had a big garden. I spent a lot of time in the garden. And when I was growing up, there was no TV, nothing like social media. We just had we didn't call it the radio, we called it the wireless. And books. I loved books. I would spend hours when it was raining in front of the fire reading books. And my mother helped me find books. I think she thought Jane will learn to read more quickly, which I'm sure was true. An example of what I mean when I say she was supportive, she took me for a holiday into the country. At that time, we lived in London. This was just before World War II. I was 4 years old. And she took me to stay on a farm, a proper farm, not one of these terrible factory farms. And I was given a job to help collect the hens' eggs. There were about 4 or 5 little hen houses where they slept at night to keep them safe from foxes. And I would go around, there were little boxes on the outside, open the lid, and if there was an egg, pop it in my basket. Well, apparently, I kept asking everybody, but where is the hole where the egg comes out? Because I couldn't see a hole like that on the hen. Nobody told me. On this one day, and this I do remember vividly, there was a hen, and she was brown, and she was going up into one of these hen houses. And I must have thought in my little 4-year-old brain, she's going to lay an egg. Now I'm going to find out. But of course that was a mistake. She flew out with squawks of fear as I crawled after her. And again, in that little 4-year-old mind, I must have thought, well, no hen will lay an egg in this hen house. There's clearly something frightening in there. So I went into an empty hen house. And some of you have children or no children of 4 years old. I was in that hen house 4 hours. And my mother was about to ring the police when she saw this excited little girl rushing towards the house. I had seen a hen lay an egg, and I don't know who was more excited, me or the hen. So instead of grabbing me, how dare you go off without telling us, don't you dare do that again. My mother saw my shining eyes and sat down to hear the wonderful story of how a hen lays an egg. That's an example, and there were many others similar. I said that I loved reading. We had very, very little money, and we couldn't afford new books. But I found a funny little second-hand bookshop, and I used to spend Saturday afternoon crawling around. The little old man really didn't know where any of his books were. And on this one day, I found a little tiny edition of Tarzan of the Apes. I used to save up my few pennies of pocket money, and I had just enough to buy it. And I took it home, I climbed with it up my favorite tree. I read it from cover to cover. Well, of course, I fell passionately in love with this glorious lord of the jungle, Tarzan. What did Tarzan do? He married the wrong Jane. I knew there wasn't a Tarzan, but that's when my dream began. I was 10 years old. I was going to grow up, go to Africa, live with wild animals, and write books about them. No thought of being a scientist. Girls weren't scientists like that. And everybody laughed at me. How will you do that? You don't have money. Africa's far away. We called it the Dark Continent back then. And you're just a girl. Dream about something you can achieve. Not my mother. She said, if you really want to do something like this, you're going to have to work awfully hard, take advantage of every opportunity. And if you don't give up, I'm sure you'll find a way. And that is the message I've taken around the world, particularly to young people in disadvantaged communities, particularly to girls in countries where women haven't yet risen to the height they should. And I wish Mum was alive to know how many people have written to me or said to me, Jane, I want to thank you because you taught me, because you did it, I can do it too. So I did jolly well at school, but we couldn't afford university. And so I had to get a job. So I did a boring old secretarial course, got a job in London. Then came opportunity. A school friend, her parents had moved to Kenya and bought a farm, and she invited me for a holiday. But I couldn't save money in London, so I went home. I worked as a waitress, very hard work, and eventually after, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I saved up enough money to get to Kenya. In those days, it was by boat. I mean, there were some planes, but they were terribly expensive. And so it was by boat. And it should have been a 2-week trip from London through the Suez Canal and to Mombasa. But because there was a war between Britain and Egypt, it was all the way down the the West Coast and around Cape Town and up to Mombasa. So the first place I set foot on African soil was Cape Town. And it was so exciting. There were all the natives in their national costume to greet the people of the boat. It stopped there for 2 days as it refueled or got supplies or something. And my mother had 2 friends there, and they'd written and said, "We look after Jane while the boat's here." So they took me around, and it was magical. But then I noticed on the back of the doors and the restaurants and so, well, all over the place, these words in Afrikaans, stegs blank. I said, what do these 2 words mean? White people only. And I wasn't brought up that way. My grandfather was a congregational minister. We judged people not by the color of their skin, their language, their culture, but by who they were as human beings. And this was the height of apartheid in South Africa. And I couldn't wait to leave Cape Town. So eventually, I got to stay with my friend. I was with her for about a month. And somebody said to me, "Jane, if you're interested in animals, you should meet Dr. Louis Leakey, famous paleontologist, anthropologist, searching for the remains of ancient humans, prehistoric humans in Africa." And I went to see him. He was head of the Natural History Museum. He took me all around. He asked me lots of questions. And guess what? Just before I met him, his secretary had left. And that boring old secretarial training, my goodness, he needed a secretary. And now here I was, surrounded by people who could answer all my questions about animals and everything else in East Africa. So it was magical, and it wasn't a real secretarial job. You know, I had to ring people up. I was allowed to take the little bush baby that had been rescued that slept in a gourd above Leakey's desk. We shared a room, and when some visitor came in, this little bush baby would peer out from his gourd. They sleep in the day normally. And then I'd see him getting ready to jump. And when a bush baby jumps, he wants his hands not to slip. So he pees on his hands, bump, bump, and then jumps. And the expression on the visitor's face as this bush baby, little tiny guy, landed on his head or his shoulders was absolutely priceless. So what a wonderful job to have on my arrival in Africa. Anyway, this led to Leakey inviting me to study wild chimpanzees in what was then Tanganyika, Tanzania today. The first person to study wild chimpanzees. And he said he'd been looking for the right person for many years. Something he saw in me, probably the way I reacted to meeting a lion when we were on a dig in Serengeti. But anyway, for whatever reason, he invited me to study chimpanzees. Took a year to get the money. Remember, I hadn't been to college. And then the British authorities said, a young girl on her own in the forest? Absolutely not. In the end, because Leakey never gave up, they said, oh, all right, but she can't come alone. So who volunteered to come? I had money for 6 months, and for 4 of those months, my amazing mother agreed to. She volunteered to come with me. And it was wonderful because for 4 months, the chimpanzees took one look at me if I got anywhere near and vanished into the forest. And I knew that if I had time, I could get their trust. But did I have time? And it was my mother who boosted my morale when I got back late in the evening every day. She said, Jane, you're finding out more than you realize. You've found that peak, and from the peak with your binoculars, you're seeing how chimps travel around, sometimes alone, sometimes in little groups of mothers and young, sometimes the whole, what we call a community, coming together when there's a new food ripe. You're learning how they make nests at night, bending over the branches, and you're learning calls they make, and a lot of the foods that they eat. So it was pretty sad. It was just after she left that that breakthrough observation came that you saw illustrated. A chimpanzee, he was the first one to begin to lose his fear of me. He was an adult male, very calm disposition, white hair on his chin. I called him David Greybeard. And he it was I saw using and making tools. And this, of course, was very exciting to the scientific community. Many of them refused to believe me. Why should they believe this young woman who didn't even have a degree? Somebody even said I must have taught the chimps to use tools, which would have been very difficult, seeing I couldn't get anywhere near them. But anyway, so that's what brought in the National Geographic Society, and they agreed to fund my research when the 6 months grant ran out. So then I could relax. Then I could actually, start to find out about the chimps as gradually I got to know more and more of them. David, with his calm disposition, truly helped, because instead of running away, if he was with a group, he just sat, and the others kind of looked from him to me, and I suppose they must have thought, well, she can't be so scary after all. So I got to know their vivid personalities. I got to know the relationships. There's no time to talk about it now, but there's a lot of books about it. And the most striking thing was how like us they are. In their non-verbal communication, they kiss, embrace, pat one another, beg for food. Males competing for dominance, and they're very dominance-oriented. They will stand upright opposite each other, their hair bristles, their lips bunch in a furious scowl. They sway from foot to foot. They may shake a fist, and they remind me of some human male politicians. No names mentioned. Then I loved watching the mothers and their young, long-term family relations, as we now know. I found to my dismay that, like us, they have a dark and brutal side, and they're capable of killing each other. They even have a kind of primitive war in which males of one community will kill individuals of a neighboring community. They're very territorial. But at the same time, like us, they also show love, compassion, and true altruism, as when an adult male may adopt an infant whose mother has died, even if that infant is not closely related to him, and save that child's life. So I've been with the chimps about 1.5 years when I get a letter from Louis Leakey telling me he's got me a place in Cambridge University to do a PhD in animal behavior. He said, there's no time for you to do an undergraduate degree. So I got to Cambridge, and I was pretty nervous, as you can imagine. So imagine how I felt when I was told I'd done everything wrong. Jane, you shouldn't have given the chimpanzees names. They should have numbers. That's scientific. You can't talk about them having personalities or minds or emotions. Those are unique to humans. You can't have empathy with your subjects. You can't be a good scientist unless you're truly objective, and you can't be objective if you have empathy. Well, fortunately, when I was a child, I had an amazing teacher who taught me that in all these respects, these erudite professors were absolutely, totally, completely wrong. In fact, they were talking rubbish. That teacher was my dog. You can't share your life in a meaningful way with any animal and not know that we are not the only sentient, sapient beings on the planet. So I didn't confront the professors, but I just quietly went on writing about the chimpanzees as they are. The Geographic sent a filmmaker, Hugo van Lauwijk, to film what I was discovering. And as his film began slowly moving around the world, then science gradually had to change its attitude. And although there are some scientists who still have this very reductionist attitude, most scientists agree that we are part of and not separate from the rest of the animal kingdom. And so attitudes have changed. And we now, as somebody mentioned earlier, we now know that other animals can be highly intelligent, and certainly that they have emotions, and certainly that they have personalities. Anyone who has 2 dogs or 2 cats or more of one of anything knows that animals have personalities. And when it comes to this, I want to diverge for a moment, because this is something which I find so important, and it's something which the chimpanzees have helped me to spread around the world. And that's when I'm talking about animal intelligence, and particularly in animal sentience, that they can feel, that they have emotions, they can feel happy or sad or fearful. They can certainly feel pain. So I have with me, first of all, this is Ratty. And some people have had rats as pets and know how incredibly intelligent they are and what an amazing sense of smell they have. Well, Ratty happens to represent a giant forest rat of Africa. And they have been trained, and I've watched them being trained. They've been trained to detect the smell of the explosive, TNT, that's in the landmines buried under the ground after a long African civil war. They've been responsible for helping to clear Mozambique of landmines. They're now working in Angola, Cambodia, and other places where there are landmines. But they've also been trained to climb up the containers in the ports to identify the smell of ivory or rhino horn, pangolin scales, or other parts of or live animals who are being illegally traded. They're also being taught to go into the rubble after an earthquake or maybe a bomb. And if there's a live person under there, they ring a little bell around their neck and somebody can go and try and rescue that victim. So these rats, they've got a bad reputation. Why? Because we waste food around, so the rats, being intelligent, say, this is a good place for us. So they come into our cities and they multiply, but it's our fault, not theirs. It's our fault because we waste food. If we tidied it all up, there wouldn't be any rats. This is Piglet. I have lots of other animals, but I only brought a few with me. Piglet represents the fact that pigs are as intelligent, sometimes more intelligent than some dogs. And if you look up, not Picasso the artist, but later on Google Pigcasso, you will see the joy of Picasso when she's given a brush and an easel is set up, how she loves to paint. And she paints in beautiful swirls, and her paintings have been selling for $5,000 and more. And her biggest painting sold for $25,000. And the point is, people say, oh, what an unusual pig. No, she's a normal pig, but she's been given the opportunity to demonstrate what pigs are capable of. That's the difference. So normally I have a cow, and cow illustrates the amazing attributes of cows. And I bring these around because, you know, this is why I became a vegetarian and then a vegan when I learned how cows are treated in intensive farming, and I couldn't sleep for days after seeing some of those videos. And it's not only the fact that it's horribly cruel, this intensive farming, but it's so bad for the land. And we just heard about that in the agroforestry, how the soil is being killed by the pesticides and herbicides and artificial fertilizer. And so huge areas of land are destroyed to grow the grain, to feed particularly cattle, because people are eating more and more and more meat. We never used to. Our guts aren't designed to eat lots of meat. Makes us sick. In addition, water is getting scarcer in some parts of the world due to climate change. Lots of water is needed to change vegetable to animal protein, and they all produce methane gas. And that's a very, very virulent greenhouse gas going up to join the CO2 from fossil fuel, the burning of fossil fuel. So that was a little aside into animals. Anyway, I got my PhD. I went back to Gombe. They were the best days of my life. I could spend hours and hours out in the rainforest. And I was not only learning more and more about the chimpanzees, but in addition, I was learning about the complex ecosystem of the rainforest, where every plant and animal species is interrelated. Each one has a role to play. And I was also building up a little research station. So as I say, they were the best days of my life. And at one time I thought, well, I'll stay here forever. Why not? There was no reason I shouldn't. But in 1986, at a conference that I helped to organize, we brought together the people from 6 different chimp study sites across Africa. When I began, it was just me. And we wanted to know, does chimpanzee behavior change from one environment to another? How adaptable are they? Is there something like chimpanzee culture, which indeed turns out to be true? But we had one session which was on conservation, and it was an absolute shock. So everywhere, forests were being cut down, and everywhere where chimps were studied, their numbers were dropping. And I just knew I had to do something. People say, well, it must have been a tough decision for you to leave Gombe. It wasn't a decision. I just arrived as a scientist and left as an activist because I felt I had to do something. I didn't know what to do. I managed to get some money from National Geographic, again, enough for me to visit these 6 other study sites, and I learned a lot about the problems faced by the chimps. Most, of course, was habitat destruction, but also the bushmeat trade, and in some African countries, chimps are eaten, and their meat fetches a very high price. And the bushmeat of other animals was growing. That's the commercial hunting of wild animals for food. They were being caught in snares set by hunters. Perhaps worst was, apart from habitat destruction, was the fact that mothers were being shot to steal the babies so they could be sold overseas as pets or for entertainment, or in those days, for medical research. Well, it's still going on. And I just was in India, and we just heard about an orangutan who'd arrived in India for entertainment purposes from Malaysia. This illegal trafficking of wild animals is a huge problem at the moment, and it's something that JGI and Roots and Shoots is working on. And the more people who learn anything about illegal trafficking and let us know, the better, because it is bringing many species to the brink of extinction. There was a report just last week of a man with, I think it was about 30 large tarantulas in little bags around his waist. And you're always hearing, some reptiles are almost to the brink of extinction. Snakes, people want these strange things. And still in parts of Asia, China, and also in the Middle East, there are animals being brought in as pets, lions and tigers in the Middle East, chimpanzees still in many parts of Asia. So that was the problem facing the chimps. But at the same time, I was learning about the plight of so many people living in and around chimpanzee habitat, the crippling poverty, the lack of good health and education systems. And it was also the fact that people's families were growing, and they were moving deeper into the forest. And we are so like chimpanzees that we can catch their diseases. And of course, they can catch ours, which is another reason that they are decreasing in numbers. So it came to a head when I flew over the tiny Gombe National Park, where, as I say, we're in our 64th year of study. But when I began in 1960, Gombe was part of this great equatorial forest belt that stretched from western East Africa, Lake Tanganyika, where Gombe is, right across to the west coast. And as I looked down, I was shocked. I knew there was deforestation. I was not prepared to see Gombe was just a little island of forest, and all around were bare hills. So it hit me then. Unless we can help these people find ways of making a living without destroying the environment, we can't save chimpanzees, forests, or anything else. Why are they cutting down the trees? In their struggle to survive, to get some money from charcoal or timber, or to make more land, to grow more food, to feed their families, or to make more money. And so that's when the Jane Goodall Institute began our program to help alleviate poverty. And it was very new for its time. This is back in 1990. And so it wasn't a bunch of arrogant white people walking into a very poor African village, and there are 12 villages around Gombe. No, it was a hand-picked group of 7 local Tanzanians. They didn't even have PhDs. They were no threat to the villagers. And they went in and sat down and asked the people, what can JGI do to make your lives better? It was the first truly community-led conservation program. And what did they want? They wanted more food. That meant restoring fertility to the overused land without chemicals. They wanted better health and education, especially for their children. So we worked with the local Tanzanian authorities. And gradually they came to trust us. We weren't like other people offering conservation. So often people coming for a PhD, collecting information, disappearing and leaving nothing. We could introduce water management programs. We got as many scholarships as we could to give girls a chance of secondary education. Back then they had no chance at all in the villages. And we also introduced what I believe was one of the most important things, and that was microfinance, based on the Grameen Bank of my wonderful friend, Muhammad Yunus. And why I say this was important is because when a very poor person takes out a tiny loan to start their own environmentally sustainable development program, their small environmentally sustainable business, and they pay it back, they're so proud, they've done it. For the first time, they had some money, they used it wisely, and they were able to pay back. So it's been very, very successful. Subsequently, we were able to introduce some modern technology, GIS, GPS, satellite imagery, so they could make their own land use management plans. And gradually the villagers became wealthier. Gradually they became more hopeful. Gradually they became more filled with self-assurance. So now we're in 104 villages throughout Chimp Range in Tanzania. There's only about 2,000 chimps left in Tanzania. And we're in 6 other African villages, African countries where JGI studies chimpanzees. And that includes places like Mali and Burundi and Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Congo and Senegal. Senegal and Mali are the 2 hottest, driest places where chimpanzees have adapted to live. So all of this, of course, is costing money, searching for grants. We got a lot of help first from the European Union and then from US aid. And I was by then traveling around the world. For me, it was about raising awareness. But of course, at the same time, I could try and do what I could to help raise money. And it was while I was traveling around the world in the mid-80s that I was meeting young people who already were losing hope. And they said, well, you have destroyed the future for us, and there's nothing we can do about it. Well, when I looked around at the world back then, it was nothing like as dark as it is now. But yes, indeed, it was the very beginning of climate change, and there were many social and political problems around the world, and already the environment was becoming increasingly degraded. But was it impossible for them to do anything? That's where I thought, no, that's not true. And anyway, these young people mustn't lose hope. So it all began when 12 high school students came to see me at my home in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Some of them were worried about the illegal poaching in their national parks. Some of them were worried about the illegal dynamite fishing. People would steal a stick of dynamite from a quarry, throw it in the ocean, and then all the fish would be stunned and could be scooped up off the top. And of course, this was destroying the coral as well. Some of them were worried about street children with no homes. Some of them were worried about the treatment of stray dogs. They all had different worries. So I told them to get their friends together. So from 8 different high schools, a group of about 30 young people came and we sat, and that's when Roots and Shoots began. And as you've heard, the main message, every single one of us makes an impact on the planet every single day. We can choose what sort of difference we make. That was the main message. Secondly, because I had learned about the interrelationship of everything, we decided that each group would choose 3 projects. One to help people, one to help other animals, one to help the environment. They would choose. It wouldn't be top down. It would be them choosing, discussing, getting advice, deciding what to do, rolling up their sleeves and taking action. And I don't think I could ever have imagined back then the kind of results from Roots and Shoots that you would have seen today. But about 10 years ago, a film was made about Roots and Shoots, or at least it was part of a film. And I've brought that little piece of video along. It's out of date. I mean, you know, we're now in 71 countries, but this will give you just a little idea of the kind of things that the young people choose to do in other countries. So if we can see that little film. And by the way, it's 71 countries, members from kindergarten through university, and adults as well.
You are the reason we found ours, so thank you, stars. Some people think it's far away, some know it's with them every day. You are the reason we found out, so thank you, stars. There are no words that can blow it away on the air. When they try to blow it away is when you know
So let me just say that you've seen that, which was towards the beginning of Roots and Shoots. You've seen examples of what's happening in Malaysia. And so you get the feeling Roots and Shoots is flexible. The children or the adults think of different programs depending on how old the kids are, whether they're in the inner city or a rural area, whether they're rich or poor, the environment that they're in. It just is so flexible, and I think that's why it's growing so fast around the world. 71 countries, the 71st was 3 weeks ago in Ukraine, and it's just growing all the time. And I think one of the reasons it's growing so fast is that people want hope. The darker the times, the more people need hope. And sometimes they don't realize how much they need hope. Sometimes people don't realize that losing hope spells doom for us. Because if we don't have hope, then what's the point of carrying on? If you don't think what you're doing is going to be helpful, why bother? So my reasons for hope, there's 4 main reasons. And you know about the problems. I haven't gone into the dark things that confront us today because I'm imagining you all know them, you know, like climate change, loss of biodiversity, the killing of the soil, the destruction of the environment, poverty, overconsumption, and on and on and on. And people say to me all the time, but Jane, you've seen so much of destruction. Do you really have hope? Can you have hope? How do you have hope? What is your hope? So my hope, as you've already heard from one of the young men up here, is the power of young people. But it's not just the young people that you've seen today, the older ones. It's also the younger ones. I mean, when I watch 8-year-olds planting trees, when I watch them doing bake sales, raising money to help save some turtles somewhere, they're just so filled with enthusiasm and dedication and passion and determination. It's just inspiring. And then when you get on to young people who've moved on, taking the Roots and Shoots message with them and started their own amazing projects, when I meet those who started in Roots and Shoots back in the 90s and see that they've retained all the passion that they had when they were in the program, when they still have respect and compassion for people, other animals, and the environment. It's just incredible to me how that little seed of 12 students has become this worldwide program that it is. And I think it's partly because we love to partner with other organizations. We've reached the stage in the planet today with all the problems that we face, that if we don't start finding partners, if we don't start collaborating, if we don't bring like-minded people together, it will be too late. I sometimes see humanity as at the mouth of a very, very long dark tunnel, and right at the end as a little star. That's hope. But it's no good standing at the mouth of the tunnel and hoping that star will come to us. We have to roll up our sleeves and climb over, crawl under, work around all the obstacles that lie between us and the star. And the good news is that for every single problem, there's a group of people or many groups of people working to try and solve it. The sad thing is they're so often working in their own little tunnels. And unless you think holistically, unless you're working with others, sometimes you solve one problem and that creates another, and you haven't thought about that. Or maybe you don't care about it. But I mean, the simplest example is you close down a coal mine. Yes, we've stopped all those CO2 emissions going up in the environment. Yippee! But what about the people who've lost their jobs? You haven't thought about them. Maybe you don't care about them. There are groups, certainly in the US, which train people whose industry is about to close into new ways of making money. So then at the end, you get a win-win-win situation. But anyway, here we are working together as much as possible so that we can together reach the star. And our young people are leading the way. But there are 3 other reasons for hope that I feel are really, really important. One is this human intellect, and I'm calling it an intellect rather than intelligence, because intelligent creatures don't destroy their only world, which is what we're doing. But we have the intellect. I mean, just think what we've done. I talked about animal intelligence. I could talk for hours about animal intelligence, but no animal could design a rocket that goes up to a planet. No animal could design the internet. And we can just go on and on thinking about human achievements. Yes, a pig can paint, but a pig can't paint the paintings like we see down here in front of us. We'll never get a pig who could be a Michelangelo or a Picasso. So the human intellect is capable of great things. But we need to start involving the heart as well as the head. We need to think about making decisions based not on how does this help me now, how does it help the next shareholders meeting, how does it help my next political campaign. Yes, those are considerations that matter, but we must bring into the equation how does this decision affect generations ahead. That's truly wisdom. That's the wisdom of so many indigenous people. And it's not up to me to try and solve the problem. I'm not an economist. All I can do is point out a problem. And the problem is that with the current way in which we depend and live for and work for and strive for more and more and more money, more and more and more power, somehow we've got to change that. And I don't know how to do it. But anyhow, the human intellect is really tremendous. And if the right people get together, we can find solutions to all these problems. That's what our intellect is for. And then my next reason for hope is much easier, and that's the resilience of nature. And you've already seen pictures of it from our farmer friend, the change when you give nature a chance to come back and take over land that we've destroyed. Sometimes we give nature a helping hand. Sometimes we just give nature time. If you fly over Gombe today, you won't see bare hills anymore. The people have understood protecting the environment isn't just for wildlife, it's for their own future as well. People are beginning to understand the importance of the whole healthy ecosystem, that we need the different animals and plants to keep the ecosystem working. And so the resilience of nature is something that I feel really, really, really hopeful. Animals on the brink of extinction can be given another chance. We see that all the time. So these gibbons here in Malaysia, we have to work to bring them back from a level of being highly endangered. The orangutans and other animals as well. Our ingenuity can do it if we want to. And my last reason for hope is what I call the indomitable human spirit. And that's why I carry Mr. H around with me. He's just one example, one symbol that I carry around, illustrating the indomitable human spirit. What I mean by that is people who tackle what seems impossible and won't give up and so often succeed. And Mr. H, as he's known, is called Mr. H because he was given to me for my birthday 33 years ago by a man called Gary Horn. Gary Horn went blind when he was 21 in the US Marines for some extraordinary reason. And he doesn't really know why he wanted to do this, but he decided he was going to become a magician. So everybody said, but Gary, you can't be a magician if you're blind. If he was standing here, I'm sure you wouldn't notice he was blind. He sets his props out ahead. But basically, he works to do shows for children. And at the end, he'll tell them that he's blind. And he'll say, you know, something might go wrong in your life, because you never know. But if it does, don't give up. There's always a way forward. And he does crazy things like skydiving and cross-country skiing. And he's been down with great white sharks in a basket, a cage. And people say, but Gary, what on earth's the point of going down when you can't see the shark? And he says, but when you're blind, you notice that enormous change in water pressure as this huge body goes by. So he is one of my examples of an indomitable spirit. There are people who start with nothing, with no money, they've lost everything, they're migrants, they're refugees, and yet somehow they make an amazing life for themselves. I meet people like this all over the world, all levels of life. And one person I must mention, he's a Canadian. He was born without arms and legs. He's got two little tiny, his arms about a little stump, no wider than my wrist up here. And then from one thigh is something that looks, maybe it's a rudimentary foot, I don't know what it is, but he can move it like this. He goes around on a skateboard. He's been around the world on his own, on a skateboard. He got on a plane, and they wanted to stop him getting on a plane. And he said, well, I've been on planes before. And they said, well, what happens if you want to go to the bathroom? He said, well, I go to the bathroom. Anyhow, they let him on the plane. And he's just, I don't know. When I first met him, he was down on the floor, so I was going to sit down on the floor with him. But he just gave one push of his foot-like thing, hopped up on the sofa behind me. And the reason I mention him is that when he jumped up beside me, I looked into a face that was as full of life and the joy of living as anybody I've ever met. Intelligence, shining eyes, zest for life. My goodness, how absolutely incredible. To end up with, I want to show that it's not only humans who have this indomitable spirit, this will to live. This takes us to a short video about one of the chimpanzees who arrived in our sanctuary for orphan chimpanzees in Africa. It's the biggest sanctuary in Africa. It's called Chimpunga. And we started these sanctuaries because of the mothers that I mentioned being shot, and because it's illegal to sell baby chimps. Very often they get confiscated on their way out of Africa. They can't be put back in the wild, so they come into sanctuaries. And this particular one is called Wounda. Wounda in the local language means close to death. When she arrived at the sanctuary, she was terribly badly wounded. She was just 1.5 years old. She was wounded by the bullet that killed her mother. She was saved by a wonderful veterinarian, Rebecca. She was integrated with other chimps. She was doing well. And then she got deadly sick again. And once again, Rebecca saved her. And once again, she regained full health. And she was chosen to be one of the individuals moved out of the overcrowded sanctuary onto one of the huge, beautiful islands given to us by the Congolese government. And what happened when she was released onto this island? I was there. It was the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And it was the first day I met Wounda. I never met her before, which is what made what happened so totally extraordinary. So I'd like to ask you one thing. When you see what happened, there's a tendency to everybody to start applauding, but try and see if you can feel what it was like to just hear the sound of the water running by the island, the breeze in the leaves, the songs of birds and crickets, and just feel how amazing that moment was for me. So that's the story that I want to end with. And I will just say that all our chimps are on birth control because, you know, we can't afford any more. We've got no space for any more, and still the babies come in. But Woonda was one of only 3 in all the years whose birth implant went wrong. So just recently, she gave birth to a healthy baby called Hope. So now let's look at the little video. This is a really exciting moment for me. The Jane Goodall Institute's Chimpunga Chimpanzee Rehabilitation Center in the Republic of Congo has for years been caring for infants whose mothers were killed, mostly for the illegal bushmeat trade. Many of them are now fully grown. Recently, we acquired 3 large forested islands on the beautiful Quilu River, where we can release many of the chimpanzees from our overcrowded center. In here is Woonda, and she nearly died, but thanks to Rebecca, she came back from the dead. And here she is about to come out into this paradise. She's the 15th chimpanzee to get her freedom here. And we hope ultimately to have about 60 on the island. Today is the first time I've met Woonda. I talked to her on the boat, trying to reassure her. She must have wondered what was happening. None of us could predict exactly what she would do once the cage door opened. It was a very, very touching moment. One of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me. The warmth of her embrace is something I shall never forget. For Woonda and all the other chimpanzees we're working to bring here, Chinzula Island will provide a wonderful forest home where they will be cared for and safe.
Thank you, Dr. Jane Goodall. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up once again for Dr. Jane Goodall. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in the next session, we have a distinguished panel discussing the topic, the heart of the matter, going beyond ESG compliance. It is a fireside discussion where our panel will be asking questions to Dr. Jane, and you're welcome to participate in this fireside discussion. There is a QR code on the screen. Yep, this one. By scanning this QR code, you'll be able to submit your questions you may have for our panel and also to Dr. Jane. And to facilitate our panel discussion, our panelists. So I shall now hand the stage over to you, Dr. Audrey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. MC. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It has been a long day.